Well, only two games on tap tonight in the NHL, but certainly plenty of action as we inch closer to that March 7th trade deadline. And we're going to break it all down here on the latest on the fourth period. It's presented by CCM Hockey. I'm Kate Pedersen, and with me is David Pagnotta. And Dave, plenty of action as we continue to ramp up towards the trade deadline. But let's start today in Pittsburgh. You know, they've been falling, and today they put Tristan Jarry on waivers. He's not likely to be claimed, but to us, that would signal maybe the next round of moves. So, what can you tell us that you're hearing out of Pittsburgh?
Yeah, there's been a lot of disappointment in Jari's performance this season in his 22 games. Subpar goals against average, subpar save percentage. He's lost five straight starts for the Penguins, and something had to give at some point. They place him on waivers. He's likely, as you said, to go unclaimed. That'll free up about 1.15 million in cap space. Now, that's not the objective. It wasn't just to free up cap space. They wanted to give him a bit of an opportunity to maybe find his game again in the A, but at the same time, as you suggested, this is probably the first of a few different moves now that are going to happen for the Pittsburgh Penguins. They're a little far out of a playoff spot. Kyle Dubas has made it known that he is still willing and open for business, willing to listen on a variety of different fronts. Marcus Pettersson's name's out there, Drew O'Connor, Matt Nieto, excuse me. There are others, Anthony Beauvillier, all these guys on expiring deals, plus other players that they're looking at. So the Pittsburgh Penguins continue to be open. They continue to look towards making moves that will fill their cupboards up a little bit, but also potentially get them to remain competitive next season. But Jarry's time in Pittsburgh certainly seems like it's diminishing.
Well, Calgary, we talked about early on, they were a little bit outperforming what we expected, and they're holding on to a wild card spot. And from the looks of it, they're going to make a push here down the stretch to be in the mix. Now, teams have been calling them about players like Rasmus Anderson. So, in their current situation, barring any major drop off, what do you think their approach heading into the deadline has to be?
It's going to be steady as she goes. Kate, I don't see this team, like you said, unless there's a dramatic fall off. This team is going to continue to be in the playoff picture between now and the end of the season, let alone the trade deadline. So for them, it's a matter of remaining competitive. They're getting a good balanced attack up and down their lineup. Goaltending has been solid. Wolf doesn't get enough credit for his performance this season. And I think the spotlight needs to be shined on him a little bit more, especially in the rookie campaign that he's having. But Calgary, yeah, they've generated calls on Anderson. They've generated calls on Kadri. Other players on this team, even Dan Vladar, their backup, who's on an expiring deal. But Craig Conroy has told teams, look, they're focused on making the postseason. So any move that they make is going to have to benefit them now and in the future. They're still looking for a right shot center to add to their lineup, preferably on the second line. But now, given their positioning, that's more likely to happen in the offseason. So, yes, there's the Anderson discussion and others, but really, why would they deplete their roster with the postseason within their grasp? That's not part of the plan anymore for the Calgary Flames right now.
All right, over in the East, jam-packed standings. Boston, they've been slipping lately. They pull off a big win over Tampa, and internally, we're hearing that this is a team that really believes in themselves, that they are a postseason team. So, in your mind, what does management need to do to reinforce that internally and maybe strengthen their roster a little bit and give them a bit of a boost here?
Yeah, they certainly believe this team has what it takes. The players on the ice believe they have what it takes. The outside look may be a little bit different, which is why management is looking to help reinforce that positioning, to reinforce that notion that they are still a playoff bound team. Now, the roster, you could argue, not as strong as it has been in the past. They haven't replaced and didn't replace the goals that they lost from Jake DeBrusk signing in Vancouver. They would like to add some secondary scoring to their roster, and that's something that Don Sweeney, their GM, is looking at. But they're kind of cap strapped. So it's going to take a little bit of juggling and creativity for them to do that. But Boston is moving forward with, similar to Calgary, the idea that they are a playoff bound team. How do you reinforce it? You strengthen their roster. They made their coaching change already. That excuse is gone. It's about the guys on the ice performing. How does Don Sweeney improve that? He's got to add some scoring, and that's what they're looking at.
Well, you mentioned cap strapped. A team that isn't quite cap strapped is Tampa, right now sitting in
Yeah.
third. Now they're up on Boston, who's on their tail, but they have games in hand. They have some cap flexibility. They'll continue to accrue that between now and the trade deadline. So what do you think is happening over there in Tampa?
Yeah, surprisingly, they have actual cap space, not LTIR space. They've got a little over 2 million in cap space as of today. As you mentioned, that will continue to increase, as the season kind of progresses here, and that's going to give Julien Brisebois, their GM, the opportunity to look at some additions to this roster. The blue line is certainly an area that they would like to improve upon, even with JJ Mosier likely coming back in the not too distant future. They're still going to look at some options on the blue line to see how they can improve the back end and strengthen and stabilize that position on the ice. At the same time, if they could add some depth to their bottom six on a pricey type of deal, then I think that's something they'd look at as well. But it certainly seems like the decor is an area that Brisebois would like to tweak a little bit and strengthen between now and the deadline.
All right, one thing before we wrap, we've got to clear the air here. Braden Point, scratched on Tuesday night. The word is that it was because he missed a team meeting. Are we taking that at face value, or are we wondering things here?
No, there's not much more to read into that, Kate. It's simply he missed a meeting. He's got to pay the consequences. Whether you're a top line guy or a fourth line player or an extra, you've got to be present for all of those. You got to follow the team rules. John Cooper made that abundantly clear after the game last night. It's an error. He's got to fix it.
We've all been to detention a time or two, so there you go. Thanks
Or
so
10.
much, Dave. We'll pick it up again later this week, and thank you to everyone for watching. It's the latest on the fourth period, presented by CCM Hockey.